This podcast is part of the Big Heads Media Podcast Network. Go to bigheadsmedia.com for more great podcasts.
Howdy y'all, and welcome to another episode of Cooking with Grief, the comedy podcast where we learn weird and wonderful facts about the world around us. As usual, I'm Chris. As also usual, I'm joined by my co-host, who is also called Chris.
Well, howdy yourself.
But unusually, we have a very special guest, all the way from South Carolina, the Palmetto state itself, whatever the fuck a Palmetto is. She's half of the excellent Bodice Tipplers podcast. She puts the bell in antebellum South. It's Courtney.
Hey,
Hello,
y'all.
Courtney. I don't know if any of that was offensive to people from the South. I was just looking for Southern references.
I feel like as far as offenses go, people from the South, we kind of hold the bar really high for terrible things that we've done, so it doesn't really matter what anybody else says. We've got a long way to go before we can be like, well, we're even, so.
That is fair. What is a palmetto? It sounds like a cornetto.
But made of grits.
A palmetto is a tree. It is a type of coastal tree. It's similar to a palm tree, but it's shorter and squatter. And the reason we're called the Palmetto State is during the Revolutionary War, during a attack on Charleston. I think it was Fort Moultrie, just on the Charleston Harbor. And the British were firing from their ships. And the palmetto tree is really, really dense and also really soft. So the cannonballs basically just kind of sunk into the actual trunks because the fort was made from palmetto trees. And so they weren't able to take the fort because it's a dense yet soft tree trunk. And it's a really pretty tree. So.
That is hands down the most interesting intro we've ever had on it. We've had that interesting fact already.
Yeah, I feel completely out of league of the level of knowledge and reliability of facts.
Yeah,
given that our usual standards are I've sort of Googled this thing.
Well, we used to have to, all the states have different tree, it's like the state tree, the state flag, the state rock, the state dog, and we had to learn all the South Carolina ones in 8th grade, and I still weirdly remember a lot of them, so.
Yeah.
If you
Honestly, I thought it was a throwaway comment about a silly word that sounds like palm, but cornetto. And here we are. We've had a whole, not even just a fact that brought you as an American and us as Brits into the same story.
That's, you know what? I feel like that might be the best of it. After that, I'm just going to fall apart on this.
Oh yeah.
It's fine to peak 3 minutes in. It's absolutely fine.
I was going to say, this episode, sorry dear listeners for such a defeatist attitude, but this is as good as it's going to get. You can turn it off now. It's only going to be downhill.
No. Peaks and troughs. We've got a well-educated and well-informed guest interspersed with cock nonsense.
That too.
We should point out that this is the Valentine's Day special.
Oh yes, that is true. We are professionals. We know what we're talking about. So thanks for the reminder. This is going to be a special love and romance and Valentine's and all things tangentially related special episode, since it will be coming out in and around Valentine's Day. And that ties in nicely with a little bit more information about Courtney. What's your podcast about?
So my podcast, Bodice Tipplers, is about reading I guess I need a premise with my co-host Sarah and I started this because we're on that cusp of Gen X millennials. And so we didn't have the internet growing up. And when you wanted information, you basically got them from books. You ever saw the Encyclopedia Brown commercials with the guy, the glasses? I don't know. That's an American thing, probably.
Yeah, we had the Encyclopedia Britannica, a far superior.
So basically, for all your sex knowledge, we didn't have the internet to go to. We got it from books that we used to steal from our grandmothers. Or any older person would have these smutty romance novels just kind of hanging around. So we go back and revisit those and talk about the insane plots, a lot of problematic things that you see in them that deal with race as well as consent, but also just kind of how they're a lot of them are delightful little feminist books and talk about the history of the romance novel. So that's what I'm going to talk to. Well, when we get to our facts.
Yep, so, and again, another nice segue there. I feel like we should stop pointing out all the times the segues are nice. It sort of ruins it a bit.
You also definitely shouldn't sound as surprised when they happen naturally. You're like, oh, that worked well. Yeah.
Yeah. So, no, that brings us on nicely to how the podcast works. So, again, for any new listeners, normally me and Chris each have brought 2 surprising topics that neither of us have ever heard before. So, usually something interesting about either history or science or just, general knowledge and weird and wonderful facts. But as mentioned, this is a special episode of a guest, so we basically outsourced half the episode to Courtney, who will give us 2 interesting facts, and me and Chris will fill in the gaps. Pad out the episode.
Yeah, we are the scheduled filler.
Yeah. Without further ado, over to Courtney for your first interesting fact.
Okay, so I wish I had a clever question like Chris always has, but what do y'all think of when you think of romance novels?
Because I am a Philistine when it comes to romance novels, I would only think of 50 Shades of Grey, and then I would be... is that even a romance novel? Is that too erotic? Is it not romantic enough? I don't know.
So I think of 2 things. I think of the time we guested on your podcast, reading out selected passages of Slut and taking it eminently seriously and giving it our best voice actor chops. And secondly, I think I guess it's closer to erotic fiction rather than romantic fiction, but I've read like the Anne Rice books and The Story of O, a bit more sort of literary stuff.
Yeah, I mean, I think the thing, really the way that romance novels are kind of determined is if they have a happily ever after or happy for now kind of ending. But it's a huge genre. I mean, it's really it's the #1 in paperbacks, so it can be a lot of things. So what I'm going to talk about is the modern romance novel, and the very first one, or the very first kind of what we think of as paperback one. So it was called The Flame and the Flower. It was written by Kathleen Woodiwiss in 1972. And it descended from the sexy kind of epics as Gone with the Wind and The Chic. But the difference in those books is there's sex in those books, but it's done behind closed doors. And The Flame and the Flower is the first to leave the bedroom door open, where you essentially see what's happening. So how
as Brits, we only ever have sex behind closed doors.
Yeah, in absolute silence.
Yeah.
Even when you're involved, the door is closed. So how this book got published was a 25-year-old Avon senior editor was sorting through a slush pile of unsolicited submissions that came through. And she was just looking for something to read over the weekend, and she found this manuscript for The Flame and the Flower. Woodiwiss was paid $1,500 for the publication rights, and she'd received 4% of the royalties. So what Avon used to do was they used to have books first in hardcover, and then they'd have what they call their spectacular. And that's where they really kind of advertise the book. And that's when it goes into paperback. So what they did with this one is from the jump, they made it a spectacular. It was given a large publication run and had all kinds of marketing.
Sorry, just one thing. I do love that it's just called The Spectacular. It's not a good name.
I just want to call things The Spectacular.
Yeah.
So the book originally had been set to have 500,000 copies, but by 1978, it had 40 different printings and sold 4.5 million copies. And it's not bad for a lady. Like Catherine Woodiwiss was a housewife, and her husband had bought her an electric typewriter for Christmas. So the premise of the book is 1799 in England. Lovely, lonely virgin Heather Simmons leaves the home of her wicked aunt for what she thinks is a teaching position. Unfortunately, it turns out the man who arranged it, her wicked aunt's even more wicked brother, wants a mistress. He gets aggressive, she stabs him and runs away, only to get lost in the docks of London, where a pair of sailors assume she's a prostitute and take her to their captain. Brandon Birmingham is the captain. He's also a South Carolina planter. And this is a 400-page plus oddity where 2 people basically hate each other, but are drawn to each other, and then eventually happily ever after. And I think what's interesting about these books is the reason that they became popular or were allowed to kind of be printed at this time period was it was right at the cusp, the end of the sexual kind of revolution. And also the United States Supreme Court had gutted obscenity laws. So like Fanny Hill, things like that allowed it to be published. So that is my short and sweet of our first bodice ripper.
Was there much like sort of moral outcry from it?
Yes and no. I mean, there were people who, what I think is really interesting and kind of important about these books is prior to, The Flame and the Flower, and then like immediately there were just tons of books that spun off of this. Prior to that, really what you had, you had female authors obviously, but think about beyond just the person writing the book. You have, with the romance genre that came, you have female authors, you have a female audience, you have a lot of times female editors and female publishers. So you have a gaze shift. Like think about movies like, I think it was the Zack Snyder's, a really good example of the gaze is Wonder Woman. The new Wonder Woman that came out.
I do. It's all wasted on Chris. And then
Okay,
Chris, he's like, what is this wonderful woman of which you speak?
So Wonder Woman appears in two different kind of DC movies. One that's directed by Zack Snyder and one that's directed by female director Patty Jenkins. The way that Zack Snyder dresses his female warriors versus the way Patty Jenkins dresses her female warriors is very different. So you have kind of this idea of gaze. And romance novels really allow for a completely feminine gaze versus a male gaze. Does that make sense?
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Okay. So you did have a lot of feminists who were really upset about these books because a lot of these books, especially the really early ones like The Flame and the Flower, and then the one that came right after it was called Sweet Savage Love, are incredibly sexually violent. In a lot of romance novels, you have what we call ravishment, where there's a no, 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 yes. And in reality, that's assault, that's rape. But in the fictional world, it's this kind of fantasy ravishment. In these books, it's just straight up assault. But the reason that they're there is even though the sexual revolution has happened, still, the majority of people, women who are living in households, hear about waiting until marriage to have sex, etc. So these women in these books violently have their virginity kind of taken away to get over the virginity problem. But, you do have people who are, there's not like a giant outcry like you would think, like when we think of like Tipper Gore talking about pornography or anything. But you do have feminists who are decrying it, and you also have men who are belittling it. But again, it's because it's not really a man's world. So
it always annoyed me the label of like chick lit or chick flick for films, just because it's seen as lesser because of a female intended audience.
yes.
It's baffling.
So yeah, these are and you also get really good covers from these. I think that's the other thing people think about a lot.
Yeah, a lot of shirtless men, a lot of heaving bosoms, a lot of couples caught out in the rain.
Yes, it's always like a man with no shirt and really tight pants, and you're like, what are you doing? What's happening? How is this a practical outfit? But
But some would say love is not practical.
it's true, and especially when you're going, a transatlantic sea voyage. They're always on transatlantic sea voyages too. That's been a big theme in the books that we read, is people getting inadvertently kidnapped. So
Can you be inadvertently kidnapped, or is that? I feel like kidnapping always implies some sort of intent.
It always happens, yeah. For all you singles out there, just get yourself a boat and throw a person on it.
Exactly.
Oh no, we've lost Chris.
Uh-oh.
I just got a message saying Chris has gone away.
He's like, I'm done. I'm done talking about this. I feel like that was very dry. I hope that was interesting enough for what.
Oh no, definitely it's perfect.
Okay.
Chris is back.
Chris is
Yeah,
back.
I just dropped out then. I don't know what happened.
I'm still
Getting the boat.
I'm still recording because it was quite funny because like you just dropped off mid sentence. But also I don't know if you got it on your end, but the message I got was Chris has gone away.
I was kidnapped to take him on transatlantic voyage. Actually, no, transatlantic kidnappings have not been good for my ancestors. So.
Oh wait, yeah. And that gets into a whole other interesting thing in dealing with, race and books. A lot of times what you have is either racism by omission. People are going to amazing tropical locations and there's no brown people. Or you have books where there's enslaved people, but they're all really happy. So that's what you get in a lot of these early books. So
I mean, they're always singing, so they must be pretty happy.
So I don't know, I find them very interesting to read and study about. And also, as you guys have read, you get really great kind of insane sex scenes.
Yeah, definitely.
Yeah, I think the one we read was it a ghost? It was a ghost robot or something, wasn't it?
Yes, it was a ghost. It was totally a ghost. Ghost banging. Ghost banging is my favorite.
Ectoplasm everywhere. And that was just before we hit record. Hey.
Oh god.
And on that gooey note, I think we'll hand over to who's next?
You.
Me. I'm going to hand over to myself. Look at me go. Okay, so for my topic, I did what I always do. This is the Valentine's Day special. I googled interesting facts about Valentine's Day. It occurred to me that I didn't actually know the origins of Saint Valentine. I don't know whether it's a glaring omission in my knowledge or whether we take it for granted about Valentine's Day but don't know the origins.
I'm so glad. Sorry, just to stop you there. I did exactly the same thing, and I'm so glad I then decided to settle on a different topic. Because otherwise, this would have been so awkward. We both just done exactly the same. Just googled who was Saint Valentine's.
What's even funnier is that I assumed you did the same thing and had a backup just in case. And I'm really interested to see if the backup is the second thing you found.
Amazing.
Okay, so, as ever with saints, then there are obviously multiple and contradictory stories, but what we do know, like what all the stories agree, is Saint Valentine was either a priest or a bishop who lived from 226 to 270, and is the patron saint of love, obviously, but also couples and marriages. You think, fair enough. Oddly, plague, which, while not an exact opposite of love, does seem to be in a different wheelhouse. Beekeepers, I don't know why he got involved with them. Yeah, I guess because it takes quite a lot of love and care and attention. But most unusually, he's also the patron saint of avoiding fainting, which seems so specific. Like, not fainting, but like when someone goes like, "Oh, I think I'm going to faint," you go, "Better pray to Saint Valentine real quick."
So it's the patron saint of being conscious.
Essentially, yeah, the absence of unconsciousness. So when you wake up in the morning and you get to live another day, you can thank Saint Valentine. Now, according to the Catholic Church, there are a few things you need to do to officially be called a saint. It needs to be offered posthumously. You need proof of a life of heroic virtue, and at least have one decent miracle under your belt.
The level of miracles that count, they vary wildly between like raising the dead. I guess that was Jesus, but like.
OG.
There's some that are like fairly like up there with like surviving things that really should have killed them, like that type of thing. All the way down to I think he's called Saint Swithin, something like that, of Winchester, whose miracle was a woman dropped some eggs in front of him, and then you pick a basket of eggs, and you pick them up, and they're all still not broken. And it's like, well, sometimes eggs don't break when you drop them. Like, you work in a supermarket, I've worked in a supermarket, like. Sometimes you drop eggs and they don't break. Like, that's not enough to qualify to be a saint.
No, I think you'll find that everything I do at work is saintly behaviour. My favourite, sort of low status miracle is Saint Paula the Bearded, who was a nun and was tired of like the romantic interests of some dude in the town or whatever. So she prayed to God to make him leave her alone. And overnight, she apparently grew this massive beard, which turned him off.
I was going to say, that seems more like one of those, like, be careful what you wish for moments.
Yeah, it's more like a German fairy tale where, like, oh, and all her fingers fell off. Oh, okay.
This is exactly what I wanted. Thank you.
So, bit that all the different stories on St. Valentine's story is the miracle itself. Okay, which is, while under house arrest for doing Christian stuff at a time when the Romans didn't really like that sort of thing, a judge visited him and asked him to restore the sight of his blind daughter. Valentinus, as was his name at the time, prayed to the big fella, put his hands on the girl's eyes, and boom, working peepers.
that's a good miracle. Like, that's like...
That's not dropping an egg.
That's not dropping eggs and just being like, oh, no, they're not broken.
Well, I feel like that you have to have, if you've got smaller ones, like, I think, like, you have to have more then, right? Like, it's kind of like...
It's like you can have one big one or several small ones.
It's like restaurant stamps on your card, like 10 small miracles and you get your sainthood free.
Exactly. It's like the sub, but I think if you have smaller ones, then you have to have 3.
I mean, that's the...
One big one or 3 small ones. This is terrible Catholicism, and my mother-in-law is going to listen and be all mad.
Well, no, it's a flexible system, which I think should be encouraged, you know.
Yeah.
So boom, working papers. The humble judge asked the bishop what he should do, now convinced of the holiness of this dude, and was told to remove all the non-Christian idols in his house, fast for 3 days, and undergo a cheeky baptism, specifically a cheeky one. After 3 days of 0 snacks, the judge freed all the Christian inmates under his authority and went about baptizing the rest of his family and household. But then Valentinus was arrested again later for continuing to preach God's funkiest of words, and was sent to the prefect of Rome, Emperor Claudius II. And apparently they got on until Valentinus started up his whole believe in God sales pitch, at which point Claudius condemned Valentinus to death if he didn't renounce Christianity. Valentinus was like, nah, I'm good, I've picked a side, and was subsequently executed outside the Flaminian Gate, or the Piazza del Popolo in modern-day Rome. So that's like the main existing story. There are like slight variations. Other stories include Valentinus performing illegal Christian marriages, particularly for young soldiers. Emperor Claudius thought married men made for worse soldiers, so married men could opt out of conscription. So that's again. So then he gets jailed, and then and another inconsistent detail in some of the stories is that Valentinus gave out paper hearts cut out of parchment to persecuted Christians, and they think it's a possible origin of the widespread use of hearts in modern sort of Valentine's Day iconography.
Was he like the OG of like making the little hearts, like what we think of as the heart symbol, where you cut the paper, you know how you fold it in half and do the weird little cut and then unfold it?
Sort of like daisy chains, but like,
Was that him? Like before that, was it just, you know...
Also before the age of like video and phones and stuff, like he would, whenever like he posed for sort of portraits, he would do the heart shape with his hands, or do make half the heart, and then he'd get his nearest buddy to fill in the heart with him.
Yeah, I want to know what these pieces of paper look like.
I guess they were just deeply Christian love notes.
Oh,
Also, they're like love hearts, the sweets, which I'm guessing. Are they a thing in America? Love heart shaped sweet.
Are you like conversation hearts?
Do they have like writing on them that say like?
Yeah.
I think they're known as amorous candies.
What do we call? We just call them. I think it's. I know you're like the chalky ones.
Yeah, exactly.
It's like, you're sweet, kiss me. Like they're kind of aggressive. Yeah.
I mean, they could be a lot more aggressive. If someone hands you a sweet and it says nice tits, you're like, Jesus Christ.
What's he got to do with this?
That's strong for confectionery.
Yes, we have those. The conversation hearts is what people call it.
We just call them love hearts. We get straight to the point. I feel like nowadays, though, I'm sure I had some not that long ago, and like obviously they've been updated for the internet age, and I feel like one of them just said like lol, and it's like it's just mean.
But there's emojis on them now, you know.
Yeah, or like it's serious. She gave me a winky smiley face, bit of sweets.
In primary school, that was basically marriage.
Yeah.
It doesn't seem like he's really. I don't know how the love. I guess because he did the secret marriages. I don't see how this is pertains.
Yeah, so far you haven't really sold me on why he's... Come on, Chris, sell me on why he's the patron saint of love and/or fainting. Or not fainting, sorry.
Well, I guess that not fainting is the easy one because he spent most of his life not fainted. So
staying away.
We've also got to somehow weave bees into this tale.
I like weaving bees as a phrase. Oh, you should have seen me last night. Absolutely weaving bees. Jesus Christ. Like a fucking apiary in there.
Now I'm thinking about that song Dreamweaver, but with Bee Weaver.
And I'm bee weaving.
Yeah. Bam, right there.
How do I link this to love? I think because it just is.
He'd love being a saint.
Yeah, I mean, like there's some apocryphal things where, like, before he was executed, the last thing he wrote a letter to the girl whose eyesight he cured, and he was like, "From your Valentine," but
Well, sure, that's just technically correct. It didn't have the same connotations back then.
Yeah, she was like, "Oh, my Valentine." I'm like, okay, he signed the letter correctly. In the same way that, like, if I finish the letter from, best regards, Chris. It's not like, yeah, no, that's fair enough. I don't know. I guess maybe he was a particularly good lover.
I feel like the note should say, like, you're the only one, or like, I'm the only one you see. Tied in with that. Do you like me? Yes, no, maybe. Check one. That's what the note really said.
Love is blind, but you are not, thanks to me. You're welcome, by the way. So I don't know, but like that is the.
As always at Cooking with Grief, we've asked questions we don't have answers to.
Cracker Jack Crew.
It'd be boring if I had answers.
Welcome to Cooking with Grief.
Like
half of an interesting fact.
I don't know whether
and we won't know the rest of it.
I don't know whether there is a particular straight line between Valentine's and love.
It must be the little it must be the hearts that he just threw at people. That must be it.
Yeah, maybe he's a particularly good poet, and it was like, yeah, I don't know. What do you want?
Guess some things we'll never know. Some things will be lost to the mysteries of time.
Or scrolling down in the article, but who's got time for that? If that's an entirely inadequate end to that topic, well, I'll hand it back over to Courtney for her second fact.
Okay, so now that we know all about, or a little bit about St. Valentine.
Now we've got the headline.
We got the headline. We got the basics. We can talk about another way that people celebrate is by watching romantic comedies. So the romantic comedy, we should define it, I guess. The romantic comedy is a movie or play that deals with love in a light and humorous way. I don't know who defined that. It didn't tell me in the article. So when looking back, the early formula that was found its way to screen, we can look at the ultimate romantic. This is from the article, not me. William Shakespeare. So Willie Shakes. Plays like Much Ado About Nothing and Midsummer's Night's Dream gave the basic setup of early and many modern romantic comedies. Two people meet, they have a conflict, reunite to live happily ever after. So the first ones on film are a little bit tougher to define. The first two movies that came out that kind of fit the romantic comedy genre came out in 1924, followed the basic premise that was laid out above. There's Sherlock Jr., starring silent film star Buster Keaton, and Girl Shy. But because these were silent films, all the dialogue was captured with title cards between each of the scenes of action, which means the true cleverness of the comedy doesn't really come until 1928 when the talkies were created. So the early form of romantic comedies was called comedy of manners. This is when a rich person would find love with a non-rich person. An example would be It Happened One Night, which was in 1934. A wealthy woman, Claudette Colbert, runs away, takes up with a handsome out-of-work newspaper reporter, Clark Gable. The movie won 5 Oscars, and this genre in particular was told a lot in the Depression era, just letting people know that money doesn't buy everything because it's the Depression. Got to give you hope. Next, we have screwball comedies. Screwball comedies came from baseball. Pitchers throw the screwball, aka balls that moved in an unexpected way. So similarly, screwball comedies are films that moved in unexpected directions. These movies can be identified by slapstick scenes and fast-paced, witty dialogue. So think about Katharine Hepburn in Bringing Up Baby, the Philadelphia Story, also with Katharine Hepburn. And this is kind of cool because this is when females become the protagonist and the hero. In the 50s and 60s, you get what's called the sex comedy, and it's not nearly as exciting as that sounds. It's really just kind of talking about the differences between men and women. So you have classic Battle of the Sex comedies include Katharine Hepburn again, and this time she's with Spencer Tracy's Death Set, the Rock Hudson Doris Day hit Lover Come Back, and the very on the nose Battle of the Sexes. These tonal changes happen for a couple of reasons. One, the sexual research done by Alfred Kinsey, Open Conversation. And then this article says that Playboy magazine came out in 1953, which gave men guides to developing relationships with women. I don't know if that's really true article.
I was going to say, that's probably not the healthiest guide you could find.
I mean, maybe it is, and that's why dudes are creepy on the internet still. Like, I feel like that's something Playboy in 1950s would have been like, yes, do more of that. In the 60s and 70s, people stopped viewing romantic comedies the way they had previously. Now men and women could speak freely about sex and love without the innuendos and ploys they often found in early films. And this one brings up the problematic Woody Allen and his movie Annie Hall. And then, that's in 1977. And then in the 80s and 90s, you get a lot of what they call neo-traditional, which is the opposite of the radical ones that you saw in the 70s. Compromises are made on both sides, and you have things like Sleepless in Seattle, and then Trainwreck, which just came out in 2015. So, that's your brief overview of the romantic comedy. Y'all have a favorite romantic comedy?
When Harry Met Sally.
I don't know.
My thing with rom-coms is I always feel like, because obviously I'm a deep cynic, so I always look for the bad in everything. But I always feel like there's usually a perfectly fine boyfriend and girlfriend. So you've got the two main protagonists, the male and female leads. Then they're usually in relationships, or at least one of them is, with somebody who is perfectly fine, who just gets cast aside because they're not Tom Hanks. And it's like, I'm always just like, oh, what about that guy? He seemed fine. I mean, sometimes they make them like an absolute like dick, and you're like, so like you feel good when they get dumped or whatever. But sometimes they just seem to just forget that, and they just be like, oh yeah, no, this is just the tale of a woman.
Yeah, but the spark's gone. The spark's gone from Mr. Nice.
Yeah,
it's fine. He's got a steady job. They've got, they've plodded along, but he's like you say, he's not Tom Hanks. A few people are.
Yeah, I think it's Sleepless in Seattle where it's Bill Pullman who, if I remember, his main crime is just that he's like has a weak constitution. He's a bit sniffly and stuff. That's like it. I think he sneezes a lot, and that's like his main flaw.
Some of them are just wild. Like the setups are wild. Like bringing up one of your favorites, Kurt Russell, like in Overboard. I loved that movie. Loved it.
Is that the one? I don't think I've seen it, but is that the one where somebody's lost their memory, so he's being pretending to be? Yeah.
Goldie Hawn is living the life. She's living on a yacht. She's just having the best time. She falls off the yacht though and gets amnesia, like you do in an '80s movie. Just amnesia happens all the time. And Kurt Russell just decides like, well, I'm gonna low-key kidnap this woman and make her do my house chores, and my 3 children are gonna be terrible to her while I open a putt-putt course, or mini golf, I guess would be the term. I don't think y'all call it putt-putt.
No, mini golf is correct. It's like golf but smaller.
And then she's gonna fall in love with me. I was like, this is what? Why are you? No. Like,
I just remember seeing the screenshot from it, and this Goldie Hawn on the bed, and Kurt Russell wearing like a vest with like, and then he's got like a utility belt with loads of tools, and like the caption was just like, inexplicably, this is not from a porn film. It looks exactly like the
I've come to fix your radiator.
Yeah, usually less creepy.
Yeah, the movie is basically, him fulfilling his dreams while she has to cook spaghetti and take care of 3 nightmare children. And his dream is to open a mini golf course.
I mean, spaghetti is nice.
I mean, my dream. I feel like that's everyone's secret dream. Just own a somehow financially successful.
Well, when we open a Cooking with Grief world, we can have a mini golf course.
Oh, definitely. I'd love that. I want to open a mini golf course now. I always get... So my thing with mini golf, we're going wildly off topic here.
I'll hit me head. You seduce me.
No, my thing
and I'll make spaghetti.
I'm just going to skip past all this.
Oh, okay. Fine.
No, mini golf, right? When people are behind you, and it just ruins everything because you feel under pressure to finish.
Yeah.
It's the worst. and I'm going to make a mini golf course where there are adequate times between different parties.
Or even like split courses where there are multiple. Everyone does course 1, but then like you can branch off and do a number of hole 2s.
Like a choose your own adventure golf course.
Yeah.
Oh, I like it. I like it.
Oh my god, we are going to get rich.
I love all the
Forget the
little,
podcast.
all the nonsense things that they have. Like there's one near us in Myrtle Beach, South Carolina, which is a big resort town, has all the mini golf, And there's like a dinosaur themed one,
I
a
love
volcano
dinosaur themed ones.
Could we make it like a
pirate themes as well?
Yeah.
I went to a pirate themed one, which ties into this episode quite nicely because it was in each hole had an interesting fact about different pirates.
Oh, it's educational too. That's
Exactly. Nice. I can still remember. I learned that Blackbeard's name was Edward Teach, and he died in North Carolina, or off the coast of North Carolina, from that golf course 20 years ago.
How about instead of a theme, we make it a political statement mini golf course, and you basically choose what your sort of starting situation is. So if you play the I don't know, like child of rich celebrity route, it's basically just like a driving range. But or you could do like like down and out inner city school kid route where like there's way more obstacles. Like you gotta hit it upstairs. Your ball's heavier.
When you said political, I was like, are we gonna do like the great dictators of the world where like you can pop the ball in Stalin's mouth? Or...
Oh my god, we could call it Pol Pot.
Like the Forbidden City where like the Tiananmen Square where you have to hurry out of the way of the tank and get a hole in one.
Oh. So rom-coms. There's the cynicism. I've already covered the first cynicism. Yeah, and then a lot of the time, Speed, not technically a rom-com, but at the end of Speed, they say, what did Sandra Bullock say? Something about how you shouldn't base relationships on
high pressure, yeah.
High pressure, yeah. Most rom-coms, I feel, miss that bit. I feel like most relationships in rom-coms are doomed to fail. God, I'm a cynic.
That's a fair assessment. A lot of them, too, it's just, especially that span in the 80s where it was like, we can't just have two people fall in love. One of them's got to be a mannequin that comes to life. Or, like a witch or something. There's always got to be a third thing thrown in there.
It's like Big. A child, like, that is...
It's an uncomfortable movie if you really think about it.
So... Exactly. I mean, she doesn't know at the time, but, like, is the lady in it? I can't remember what she's called, but is she a paedophile now?
I feel like she kind of,
she couldn't have known at the time. It was just Tom Hanks, but
if she on her to catch a predator, she'd be like, he's in a man's body, So.
Yeah, no one's gonna believe that. And also, Tom Hanks has to go back to being like a 12-year-old or whatever he is.
Yeah.
Having been a grown man who's got laid, is then gonna go back to dating like other, when you're 12 years old or whatever, like going dating somebody's just like holding their hand and like then falling out over something daft. He's gonna do that having been a grown man who's got laid. That's really asking for all sorts of problems.
They threw a sex scene in Big. It is wild to think about.
And that was a choice.
In a bunk bed too, I think.
Why is that more disturbing?
Because it was a child's bunk bed.
Top or bottom bunk?
I think.
Or on the ladder.
There's a joke about it because she's all, I'm gonna spend the night. He's like, okay, but I get the top, and then he climbs onto the bunk. God, thinking about it now.
Wait, Chris, you've never seen Big?
No. No.
So you've just had to listen to us just describe what must have sounded like the most insane thing about Tom Hanks and paedophile women.
To be honest, no idea what the plot is, but I assume, Tom Hanks gets trapped in a child's body, or
no, other way around.
Other way around. He gets
child grows into Tom Hanks.
Oh.
overnight.
Makes a wish on a magic genie at Coney Island.
Well, no, this is like a robot genie thing.
Yeah, it's a robot genie, so the magic, isn't just implied.
Mm.
So you think it's just mechanics, but it's really magic.
Right, so on that note, I think we'll hand it over to Chris for our last topic of the episode.
Okay, so having failed to answer most questions and found out that we have the same thought process when it comes to hastily trying to learn things about love, which sounds like a plot to some like film where a robot has to find out what it means to be human. Anyway, off topic already. So for my topic, I'm going to talk about the history of wedding and / engagement rings.
That was not my backup topic.
Oh, what was your backup topic just before we get started?
It was Japanese Valentine's Day traditions.
Oh, that would have been good.
Oh, well.
Should have done that. That sounds much more interesting.
Oh.
Anyway, we'll save that. Valentine's Day 2022. Put it in your back pocket. As most of us are probably aware now, like it's a traditional sign at least in the West, for engagements to be sealed with a ring. Basically, it goes like most things, it goes back to the Romans.
Woo!
So there is a theory, but it seems not to have come up until like the 17th century. Because there's apparently the Romans called something the vena amoris, which they thought was a vein in the ring finger of the left hand that went straight to the heart. That was why rings go on that finger. But like I say, it seems to have only come up in the 17th century rather than being original. So even back then, there was, if you wanted your spurious facts niche filled, like they had people for it. They didn't just have to rely on us. So yeah, so then there was, like I say, there was the traditional, they used to just do the wedding ring back in Roman times and through most of Western history. And then what happened was later on, so sort of like Victorian times, they started doing the whole idea of engagement rings, even slightly earlier than that. Yeah, so they started doing the engagement ring before you got married. And then what happened is in Victorian times, they found shitloads of diamonds. And as we all know, diamonds are a girl's best friend. But what actually happened was, it used to be a law in, in lots of places, but we're going to specifically focus on America. It was called the breach of promise, which was the idea that if a man, asked a woman to marry him, and then he changed his mind and fucked off, she could sue him because she's basically given up her, it was sort of the idea that it's like a breach of contract, basically.
Mm-hmm.
But interestingly, it only worked one way. So a man could be sued by a woman if she changed her mind, but a woman could change her mind and that was fine. But I think it was more on the idea of, because obviously, like, men had more options traditionally. Like, and they weren't looking for somebody to, back in the day, women were basically, like, financially looked after by the father, then by the husband. And if you didn't have either of those, you were left to die, because back in the old days, people were apparently horrible.
You got sent to the asylum.
Yes, exactly.
Because of the war.
Yeah. just war. Just the general concept.
Just the concept of war, yeah. Awful.
So there are two things that happened sort of around the same time. So one was they got rid of that law, which led to the idea of giving somebody a fancy expensive ring. So then if things didn't work out, they'd have a ring, worth value, a valuable item that they could sell or whatever. So they wouldn't sue, they'd just keep the ring. And the other thing was De Beers, the diamond mine owners, they basically, they choked the supply of diamonds, and because turns out there's actually fucking loads of them, but they just decided to choke the world supply. And then they launched a massive marketing campaign telling people, the whole thing that engagement rings have to have a diamond. They couldn't just be a gold band. If it wasn't a diamond ring, it wasn't an engagement ring. And that, they're the ones that started the whole 2 months salary. Like a ring should be worth 2 months salary. All that stuff. And it worked massively. And then that's how we ended up with engagement rings being the only, being diamond rings.
All from artificial scarcity.
Yeah, all artificial scarcity started in the 30s, in the 1930s.
Huh.
Artificial scarcity, and I told you I'm a cynic. I'm especially a cynic about engagement, but we won't go there. It's basically, I just want to say that everybody who's got engaged and married in the last 80 odd years, it's a sham.
And it means
nothing. Based on nothing. You have been duped by a diamond cartel.
A racist diamond.
A racist diamond cartel based in South Africa. Based in apartheid South Africa. So not only is your love a sham, it's also racist.
I think most of them are racist, but like I don't think there's one that's like, well, we're the good ones. So.
Yeah, there's no like ethical diamond.
Yeah, they might lie about it and say they are, but we know the truth.
So yeah, so
suckers.
Yeah, yes we are. Also, not interesting, but similar, related fact. I learned this I remember reading about this when Ariana Grande and what's he called? Pete Davidson split up. Diamond ring or engagement rings count as an absolute gift in law, which means that basically you can't ask for it back.
Oh, what else is included in an absolute gift?
Yeah.
No idea. But basically, it means that you've given it to somebody, and even if your engagement breaks off, you can't. Although she can give it back when she's angrily breaking up with you, but again, we won't go there.
I feel like we're gonna deep dive into something.
Comedy podcast, not a therapy session, mate.
Into the sea. I don't know.
Valentine's Day special, not trauma.
But yeah, apparently nowadays as well, there are engagement rings for men called management rings, which feels like a pun.
I don't like that.
I don't like that either.
I don't like the name, at least.
It's a terrible name.
Yeah. Oh, sorry, no, I can't read. Mangagement, not management.
That makes more sense. I still don't like it, but at least that makes sense.
Oh, God. No, it makes way more sense if you read.
Management rings.
That was just...
It's not a call from head office. Congratulations on the marriage. Oh, thank you, boss.
That sounded like management. It sounds like, whenever you watch... I mean, I don't know, Courtney, if you notice this, because you're like, obviously, you're immersed in American culture, but like, when I watch like NFL and stuff, and it's got all the American adverts, why is everybody apparently obsessed with having military-grade aluminum pickup trucks? Like, what is it that everyone's doing over there? It's like, but the voice that the management, made from high-grade, high-tensile, military-grade aluminum.
Pick up your kids in a, tactical stealth vehicle. Like, what?
Yeah. Can tow a space shuttle. It's like, how often? Was that so, Courtney?
When they drop the stuff in, when they drop, the bricks in and the truck does that little bounce, yeah. I think it's all, it's very Freudian what everybody wants. Titanium-style pickup truck that costs $100,000 for a pickup.
If you're a man, everything in your life must be rock hard, hard, hard.
That sounded like it was going to be a start of some techno thing. Rock, hard, 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 hard.
No, I have, the pickup truck commercials are pretty hilarious.
Yeah, I mean, American adverts do seem unnecessarily gendered.
Yes.
I know that's not a novel observation, but...
There's also the insane medical adverts.
Yeah, with a 10-minute long, super fast list of all the side effects.
Like may cause anal leakage and heart attacks. But whilst they're saying all these things, there's some old guy, some old couple, playing
dancing
or something. Yeah, dancing. I was just may cause strokes, high tension.
Walking in a field.
Yeah.
Prayers to Saint Valentine may not work.
Yeah.
It's
Please speak to your doctor.
Briefly in a medical office answering phones, and it was the worst job I've ever had. But it's so wild because you have people who can come, they have pharmaceutical reps, and while they can't give like the doctors gifts outright, they'll just buy lunch for everyone in the office, and that's like 30, 40 people. So these people are spending how much money every single day to court these doctors for these drugs, and it's just the most just offensive, terrible thing. But that's a whole other diatribe.
I know
I'm
it's
sure.
massively off topic, but it is so weird. Like the idea when they're like, "Ask your doctor if blah 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 is right for you," and it's like, surely it should be the other way around.
Yeah.
Like I feel like you go to the doctor, say my heart feels funny, and then they work out what's but like
Yeah.
this is what I mean.
Yeah.
You don't know if you're having like a bradycardia or whatever, like because you're not a doctor. So you should go, be like, my heart feels funny. They work out what's wrong with you and then suggest a drug for you. Not be like, well, you see, it's a tough one, but I really like the advert with... This is a terrible accent. But I really like the advert with the dog. You know the one with the dog? The Frisbee. Yeah.
Got an insight of Foghorn Leghorn going to the doctor. I say, boy, I like the advert with the talking dog.
I was talking to my girlfriend about Foghorn Leghorn. She was like, "What are you talking about?" I was like, Foghorn Leghorn, the giant chicken,
the giant Texan chicken.
I was explaining that there used to be a statue of Foghorn Leghorn in the Arndale Centre.
What?
So the shopping centre it had a Warner Brothers shop when I was a kid, and so it had two things that were really cool. Is it had a bat cave round the corner, but then in like this little square that's like in the shopping centre where there's like a fountain and stuff, there's a bunch of statues of like Bugs Bunny and stuff, but the one I always remember that was in a weirdly prominent place was Foghorn Leghorn.
It's just like a little town that loves Foghorn Leghorn.
No, it's our country's second biggest city, and we recognise our heroes.
And we miss Foghorn Leghorn.
Yeah.
Sorry, I didn't know Foghorn Leghorn was so sensitive. Yeah, I love that. I love that there's just a statue, or there was.
There was. They should bring it back.
Gone.
Well, when we have our putt-putt place, aka mini golf, we'll have the Foghorn Leghorn statue.
Just
Next to Pol Pot. Next to Pol Pot and Mao.
It's like, Jesus, what did that
No,
chicken...
Jesus is in there as well. That would get us firebombed.
Yeah, okay,
What will
but...
Foghorn Leghorn do? WWF.
Yeah, what is that chicken capable of? To stand there with Stalin, Hitler, Idi Amin.
I don't know why the Southern, and again, this goes back to our intro about how, offensive things might be to the South. But me and Chris, we end up doing the Foghorn Leghorn accent on a weirdly, like a weirdly frequent basis. I do declare. I do declare this to be our most inhospitable place.
It's anytime there's a stutter and it's like, I say boy.
Oh, God. We are... All right, this is getting self-indulgent. So, yes. Rings. Do stuff. Get engaged. Love. It's wonderful. Yeah, I'm done. I really should have bought some love hearts to just read the various captions.
Big finish.
LOL, kiss, hug.
I'll say boy.
Call me. I see you.
I see you. That's an unnecessarily creepy one. I'm watching you.
And they occasionally throw one of those in there where you're just like, what's happening? Yeah, a little bit stalkery, so keep you on your toes, I guess.
Yeah, watch you while you shower. Oh, okay. That's weird.
The Police, the song Every Breath You Take, where it's like actually really creepy.
Oh, yes.
It's like about a stalker and like Sting's bit. I think there's an interview with Sting who's like, why do people play this at their weddings? It's about a stalker.
Am I meant to have hit stop? Is Stalker Talk part of the episode?
No, it's part of the episode, but you can hit stop now.
Okay.
Okay, and with that, I think we've paid lip service to the topic of love. Sounds dirtier than intended. But yeah, I think we paid lip service to 4 topics before veering wildly off-piste into things we're much more comfortable talking about, which is, again, things we're more comfortable talking about, and yet somehow simultaneously less knowledgeable about. Bloody hell, that was hard to say.
That's too much lip service.
Yeah.
Mouth's tired.
Oh, God. I really hope some listeners have stuck around long enough to hear that. Because that's one of the highlights. Thank you for listening, as always. Thank you, Chris, for being part of the episode as usual. But for once, not being 50% of the episode.
Okay, a strong third.
I feel like it's been a while since I've done an outro. I can't remember what I'm saying. But most importantly, thank you to Courtney for spending your evening, what time's over there? Your mid-afternoon?
Yeah, it's around 5.
Yeah, your afternoon/evening, early evening,
It's like, yeah.
tea time.
But your precious free time on this
Yes.
lamentable
Well,
content.
thank y'all for having me. I had a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Again, I'm Courtney from Bodice Tipplers. You can find us at bodicetipplers.com, Tipplers on Twitter, and wherever you podcast. If you want to hear more rambling from nonsense people.
And also, if you want to hear us on there.
Yeah, you can. You're on there as well. So, thank
Yeah.
you again.
The plug within the plug. Well, actually, me and Chris, we've both listened to your show, so we can both actually recommend it, which is nice, rather than us having to pretend. Yeah. Oh yeah, it's great. This podcast about the thing you do. Yeah, no, it's brilliant.
Yeah.
No, we can genuinely.
I can't get enough of the history of jam.
Well, like I said, we can vouch for the fact that you guys you and Sarah are both very funny, and we can also vouch for the fact that you put in quite a lot of drink suggestions throughout your back catalogue. Sometimes just described as like blue. What's this drink like? It's blue.
Yeah, it's booze heavy, if like ill-defined booze recommendations.
This drink, this blue drink. Yeah. So, again, it gets a little sloppy, but it's fun. But this was fun as well.
Yeah. So, anything else to plug? No. Chris, anything to plug? What's with it?
Yeah.
I missed anything? Do you want to plug us?
Do I want to plug us? Well, you can follow us on Twitter at Cooking with Grief with no G on cooking for hilarious tweets. You can email us with longer feedback and suggestions for topics at cookingwithgrief@gmail.com. Or you can go to Big Heads Media for us and lots of other great podcasts.
That was very professional. That's why I asked you to do it, because I always forget something.
We've done it the equal amount of times. It's me, then you, then me, then you. It's the same information week after week.
I know. I'm just very bad at self-promotion.
I've been
I
very
always
excited
forget.
about the awkward end. You guys, I love the awkward goodbyes.
Well, we do.
I mean, we're English. Every goodbye is awkward. It's like, oh yeah, I shall see you again soon. And then you realise that you're following the same way out, and then you just stood waiting for a taxi and going like, well, this is awkward, he says, making it more awkward by pointing out how awkward it is. And then you stand in silence until a taxi arrives, and then you go, oh, this is me. Like, obviously, that's how a queuing system works.
Also, we can't do the traditional British way of leaving a situation, which is to put both hands on like your thighs and go, right. Which is just the universal sign for it's time to go.
Or if you're a middle-aged dad, you can go like, you can clap your hands and then go, let's rock and roll. As you get into your Ford Mondeo.
The way that we do it is we are always like, well, let me let you go. That's the southern way.
That's it. I feel like there's quite an overlap actually between like Southern hospitality and British like politeness, where like you've got to try and act like you're doing them a favour by letting them go, but really you're like, oh well, I won't keep you any longer.
Yeah, it's very.
I'm sure you're very busy.
We're all about being polite.
There's that southern charm of, well, bless your heart, by which you mean go fuck yourself.
Exactly. Yeah, yeah, bless your heart has many different, the connotation.
It's the most passive-aggressive, interjection I can think of. Well, bless your stupid fucking opinions.
You can also use it for just if somebody's just unfortunate. Like, well, not...
Going into cardiac arrest.
No.
Please, Lord, bless this man's heart.
If somebody's just dressed terribly, or you could be catty too, where you're just like, well, bless her heart. Bless her heart.
Well, isn't that fun?
So it's got a lot of connotations. But see, I made our awkward goodbye more awkward and long now. So.
It's very on topic.
Yeah, you're part of the Cooking with Grief family at this point. If you can stretch out saying goodbye for 6 minutes now.
Oh God, I'm Southern. We can do it for 20 minutes and then get on another topic, and then trying to leave with an old Southern white man is the worst thing in the world because they'll just.
Particularly if you don't know him.
Be like, come on, Daddy, we gotta go. And it's like, all right.
In my head, it's just Colonel Sanders. As soon as you mentioned old Southern guy, I was just like, it's Colonel Sanders, isn't it?
Well, what they don't tell you is once they hit 65, every old Southern white man just turns into Colonel Sanders. It just happens. They get the state and everything.
Come on, it's time to go. Did I tell you about my chicken? Yes, several times.
Herbs and spices.
It's a secret blend, I wasn't actually a colonel, I'm a mule tender.
It was really unfortunate as well. The Colonel Sanders impression and the Foghorn Leghorn impression, ironically, are exactly the same, even though the two men are presumably mortal enemies.
Oh, well, after 7 minutes of outro, that was worth it.
And on that note, I do declare that this podcast is over.
Well, bless your heart.
Farewell.
Goodbye.
Bye, y'all.
In a world where digital content barrels towards us at relentless breakneck speeds, where posts and memes and tweets and snaps rain down a punishing assault of attention-grabbing data, three heroic podcasters with a strong background in broadcast media are taking on the internet. Each week, we break down the trends, technology, and connections that are transforming our lives. We are Things I Found Online.
Available wherever you get your podcasts.
Okay, so Kurt Russell and Goldie Hawn got together in the 1983 movie Swing Shift, but they had met before. So they first met in 1966 while they were filming a Disney movie called The One and Only Genuine Original Family Band.
Catchy.
It's long.
Goldie Hawn was 21 and he was just 16. She thought he was adorable, but obviously much too young because she's not To Catch a Predator. Then years later, they met up again.
She's not the show itself. She's not the 6 o'clock news.
So they've actually been in 4 films together. The One and Only Genuine Original Family Band, Swing Shift, Overboard, and Santa Claus 2. That's Santa Claus Chronicles 2. So
That's a new one.
Yeah.
Isn't it?
That's fine.
Yeah, the unnecessarily sexy Santa. I say unnecessary. Added a certain piquancy to the film.
He's just trying to break stereotypes, maybe. It's like Santas can be sexy too, I guess. I have not watched that because I'm a grown up, so I have not watched the Kurt Russell Santa Claus movie.
I feel like you're missing out, but I say that as somebody who started watching the first one and then got bored because.
Oh, and the first thing that Kurt Russell ever said to Goldie Hawn, on, his pickup line, is he says that he was severely hungover and didn't know her very well, and just said what was on his mind, and he just said basically, "Man, you've got a great figure."
At 16? He was like a grizzled old man at 16.
No, this was in 83 when they met during Swing Shift again.
Oh, right.
So, 21 and 16 at the one and only original genuine, or the one and only genuine original family band. Yeah, nothing happened.
Yeah.
But when they were on Swing Shift is when he told her that she had a great body.
So yeah, I know that like incels and stuff complain about like how if you're attractive and if you're unattractive, like physically, the things you can say to a woman that work as pickup lines / get you arrested can be the same thing. But I imagine like Kurt Russell saying, "Whoa, you got a great rack," probably does just come off a lot better than like just random average men.
Also, like, even if the intention is the same, figure and rack, very different vibes.
Yeah, I think so.
Technically true.
They apparently they had a wild first date. They went to the Playboy Club, and then she had bought a house and couldn't get into the house, so they broke in. Like, all right, Kurt and Goldie.
Sounds, yeah. This should have been the main content of the show.
I mean, we're still
This is
recording.
Kurt Russell facts and Valentine's Day. Not Valentine's Day. Romance. First dates.
The ultimate love story, Kurt and Goldie. The cops showed up because they thought somebody had broken into the house.
And then he told the police, "Man, you got a nice rack." It's like, oh, you're so charming. He just said it to everyone. He just happened to work on her.
I like that that's his just way of greeting people. But yeah, so
Kurt Russell never will learn the word hello.
well, thank you for letting me share a Kurt Russell fact.
Thank you for
Thank you
sharing
very
your Kurt
much.
Russell fact.
Yeah, exactly. We love Kurt Russell facts, and we've not had one for ages. So it's great that we A, got a new one, and B, somehow on topic. I need to stop being amazed by that. I mean, thank you very much for bringing this this very on topic Kurt Russell fact as planned, because we're professional.
You're welcome.
Well, we're
I
not
did plan
professional.
it.
This cost us more money than we've ever made.
Is this a second outro now? What's going on?
Oh god.